The wind howled across the empty plains like a lonely wolf begging for company, and snow dust rolled across the ground as if the earth itself tried to bury forgotten memories. The town of Dust River had seen all kinds of winters, harsh, freezing, unforgiving, but none as cold as the heart of the man who walked alone through them. Silas Hart, the cowboy people whispered about, but never approached unless they had to. He wasn't mean, just unreachable, hardened, a man whose silence was heavier than any threat. His boots crunched over frost-bitten ground as he guided his horse through the ranch gate. He lived with the land, the cold, and his memories, never with people. The townsfolk said every woman for miles had tried to court him. Some brought pies, some offered companionship, some flirted boldly, thinking they could thaw him. But Silas had no space for small talk, sweet smiles, or the playful glances that floated his way during Sunday gatherings. Nearly every woman wondered the same thing. Why won't he choose someone? Some said he was broken. Others said he was just stubborn. But only he knew the truth. Love once cost him everything, and he wasn't willing to pay again. This winter, however, felt different, lonelier, colder, like the world was shifting, pushing him towards something, whether he liked it or not. Meanwhile, down the road, a woman named Evelyn Brooks stepped off a dusty coach wheel with trembling legs and eyes full of determination. Life had thrown her enough storms to drown her spirit, yet she stood tall, a quiet fire burning beneath her modest coat. She looked nothing like the other women in town. Not polished, not trying to impress. She wasn't here to charm anyone. She came for one reason, a fresh start, and maybe, just maybe, a place she could finally belong. Her first sight of Silas was accidental. She stepped into Miller's feed store and found the whole room frozen, not from the cold, but because Silas Hart stood near the back, arms crossed, waiting on an order. Women stared at him like schoolgirls. Men nodded stiffly. Children quietly admired him the way they admired legends. Silas noticed Evelyn only because she didn't stare. She walked right past him, chin lifted, eyes forward. That was strange. People either feared him or looked at him like he was some prize stallion. But she treated him like no one, like she wasn't there to impress or ask for his attention. And that unfamiliar sensation unsettled him. Days passed, snow deepened, and Dust River whispered rumors. The newcomer didn't flirt with Silas or bake for him or try to impress him like every other unmarried woman did. Instead, she worked hard. She cleaned the old abandoned homestead on the edge of town and repaired broken windows, hauled wood, and shoveled snow herself rather than begging for help. Some called her stubborn, others admired her grit. Silas? He pretended not to notice, but he did. One night, with snow falling, thick and heavy, Evelyn struggled against the wind, trying to fix a broken fence. The cold bit her fingers until they bled, but she didn't stop. That stubborn streak pulled Silas right out of his routine. From a distance on horseback, he watched her battle the storm. And for the first time in years, instinct pushed him forward. He approached quietly. "Fence won't hold," he said. She didn't look up. "Neither will the roof, the window, or the porch," she said. "But someone's got to fix them." Her tone wasn't rude, just exhausted. Silas dismounted and took the hammer from her shivering hand. Evelyn's brows lifted. "You don't even know me." Silas shrugged. "Fence doesn't care." They worked in silence, snow pouring down, breath fogging into the freezing air. When the final nail went in, Evelyn leaned back against the post, catching her breath. You didn't have to help. Silas wiped his hands on his coat. Didn't say I wanted to. She almost laughed, but instead asked softly, Do you ever get tired of being alone? Silas stiffened. The question cut too close, closer than anyone had dared in years. Evelyn didn't apologize. She didn't look away. She held his gaze like she wasn't scared of what she might find. Finally, Silas turned toward his horse. Good night. But the question followed him home like a shadow. Days passed, and something changed between them. They didn't flirt. They existed beside each other, naturally. Silas brought wood when storms came. Evelyn shared warm bread when she baked. They worked side by side, fixing roofs, mending fences, clearing snow. Not a romance, but something deeper, understanding. Then one evening in the town hall, people gathered for a winter dance. Music filled the room, laughter echoed, and warmth overflowed from lantern light. Every woman tried once more to catch Silas Hart's attention, offering smiles, batting lashes, giggling with hope. Silas ignored them all, until Evelyn stepped near him, not with flowers, not with shy glances, but with the boldest, simplest question he'd ever heard. She looked him dead in the eyes and asked, You want a wife, or another winter alone? The room froze. Silas stared at her like lightning had struck his chest. No woman had ever spoken to him like that, direct, brave, honest. He swallowed. The music faded, and for the first time in years, Silas Hart felt alive. Before his answer formed, the chapter ended, not with words, but with a heartbeat. Silas didn't respond right away, not because he didn't know the answer, but because the truth terrified him. The room seemed to hold its breath as everyone waited, but Evelyn didn't flinch. She wasn't asking for flattery, promises, or attention. She asked a question like a woman who had lived enough life to know what mattered and what didn't. Silas finally spoke, voice low and rough. I don't need a wife. Evelyn nodded once, calm and steady. Then you better get comfortable with cold, she replied softly, because winter isn't done with you. She walked away, not out of pride, but because she respected herself enough not to chase a man who couldn't choose her. But Silas wasn't the same man he was 5 minutes earlier. The words hit him harder than any storm, harder than regret, harder than grief. All night and all the days after, her question echoed. You want a wife, or another winter alone? Silas had survived blizzards, heartbreak, and loneliness, but nothing cut deeper than knowing he might lose her. Not because she wasn't willing, but because he was too afraid. He tried avoiding her, tried burying himself in work, tried convincing himself life was easier alone. But every time he walked past her homestead and saw the chimney smoke, something pulled at him. He noticed things he never let himself see before. Her strength, her kindness, the way she talked gently to animals, the way her presence softened the world, and softened him. One night, another storm rolled in, angry, relentless, and stronger than the last. The wind cut like knives. Snow beat the land like fists. Silas tried to ignore the worry gnawing in his stomach, but finally he saddled his horse and rode out toward Evelyn's home through the furious storm. Lightning split the sky as he reached her yard. The house stood firm, but the barn door whipped wildly in the wind, threatening to break loose. Evelyn ran toward it, coat flapping, hair wild. What are you doing out here? She shouted. Same thing you are, Silas grunted, helping her slam the door shut and securing it with rope. Once safe inside the barn, both breathless, drenched, and shaking from the cold, silence settled. But not the kind that held distance. This one held meaning. Evelyn stared at him, not angry, not desperate, just waiting. Silas looked down, voice cracking like frost under weight. I was scared. Her brows softened. Of what? Me? No, he whispered. Of wanting you. Her breath hitched. Silas continued, voice low and broken. I've been empty so long. I forgot what it felt like to wish someone was beside me when the wind howls at night. I pushed everyone away because it was easier than losing someone again. But you, his chest rose sharply. You make me want things I swore I'd never need. The barn fell silent except for the storm hammering the world outside. Evelyn took one step closer, then another, until she was right in front of him. Silas Hart, she murmured. Nothing worth having is ever safe. He looked into her eyes, steady, unwavering, real, and finally, let the walls fall. Silas reached out slowly and took her hand like he was touching something sacred. No more winters alone, he said. She smiled, not wide, not bold, but warm, full of quiet victory and relief. Weeks passed, and the storm faded. Spring crept slowly into Dust River, bringing sunlight, thawed soil, green shoots, and renewal. The once lonely cowboy and the woman who had the courage to challenge him became a pair the town admired, not because of flashy romance, but because of how they walked side by side like two souls who belonged together long before they ever met. When Silas and Evelyn finally stood together in front of the church to exchange vows, the town watched in silence, not gossiping, not giggling, but in awe. Because sometimes the hardest hearts aren't cold, just waiting for the one person brave enough to ask the right question. As Silas slid the ring onto her hand, he whispered the same words she once asked him. You wanted a husband, or another life alone. She smiled, tears shining, love glowing. I wanted you. And when Silas kissed her, the whole town knew. The cowboy who refused every woman had finally found the only one he ever needed.